Assalamu alaikum and good evening. You are listening to Let's Talk, our weekly current affairs show with me, Akil Khalil, and my co-host Hamid Chowdhury on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM and Inspire FM in Luton. We are online at salamradio.co.uk. You can find us also on social media, Salaam Radio. I believe we're also live on YouTube and also via iOS. Oh, are we? That's nice. And via iOS and Android apps. We're always on air 24/7, 365, uniting all communities. Please get involved with your opinions by calling us on 01733 602 133 or text WhatsApp us on 07745 278 978. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah. You are?
I'm wonderful. I've had a great week off work.
Oh, yeah, of course you were mentioning that, weren't you?
Yeah, relaxing all week.
Some people have just got easies.
I know. Come on. I think you'll find that I've actually earned that. Yeah, maybe some people might not agree.
A lot of people disagree. The facade is great.
Touche. Yeah, it's been appalling actually.
Yeah, it's been tough week, has it, for you?
Yeah, it's been a tough week.
Being at home, playing with the kid.
Yeah. Amongst other things. What about yourself? How's your week been?
Alhamdulillah, you know, it's busy as always. You know, the A-level results came out on Thursday.
Oh yeah, how did you do?
It wasn't me. I mean, I wish it was, but you know.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, but you know, alhamdulillah, I think good results this year.
Yeah, overall they said boys have done better than girls.
No, first time ever. Which is interesting, actually.
Do you know what? If there are any students listening to us, we would love to hear from you, actually. You can call us to let us know how you got on. I'm sure Brother Hamid would be interested in how you found it.
I'm always interested. I tell you what, I love the excitement of results day.
Is that because it's no longer yours?
It's no longer mine. I don't have to open the letter up. But I love to kind of be there. To see the excitement, the laughter, the tears, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
it's great.
I don't know how the students do it live on the news. I mean, I would be really worried. Even if I knew, I don't know, if the forecast was great and I was going to do really well, I still would be a little bit apprehensive of actually opening my envelope in front of the whole world.
Yeah. Are there students that do that?
Yeah.
I always thought they open it beforehand. See what the result
many sealed envelopes.
You reckon?
Brave.
That's brave. That is brave.
I could never do
that. That's people who are pretty much confident that they've got into Oxford or Cambridge.
That's right.
Like Malala
Yousafzai. Yeah, absolutely. She has.
She got into Oxford,
She's done
which
really
is
well.
great. Although I think Oxford would have bent over backwards to have her.
Very because
true. That's
but
that
at
kind
least
of
she's got it on
institution.
her merit.
Yes, unlike others.
Yeah. And and again, if we go
the Pakistani what's his name, Bilal Benazir Bhutto's son. What's his name?
Yes, Bilal Bhutto, I think his name is.
Right, yeah. He was at Oxford as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I don't know what you're intimating, brother.
I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying that Oxford is one of those institutions.
I could reassure our listeners, our brother Hamid's pockets are deep. Please continue.
I'm just saying that Oxford is one of those institutions which it kind of wants future aspiring politicians and leaders, because it bodes well for Oxford, I guess.
It does, and I think the other thing is...
I'm sure Cambridge is the same, although, you don't hear too much about Cambridge. Generally, if you're a politician and you're one of those kind of, groomed to be a leader, you'd opt for Oxford, I reckon. Or would you Oxford, Cambridge, I don't know.
I understand where you're coming from. I think that with the Malala element here as well is that what happened through her from a young age and the way she's advocated education, especially for girls in around the third world, but all over the world actually, and to see her get into such a prestigious university on her own merit, it's fabulous. She has a massive social network following as well, and I saw a lot of people positive tweets, etc. sent to her. I think it's absolutely great.
I think it's great. But the danger I find with and absolutely, I think she suffered a lot to kind of fight for the right to have an education. But I think that a certain elements of society or certain people with a certain mandate would kind of pick that position and say, see, everyone in the subcontinent, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, those kind of regions, they don't allow women to have an education, and she is a witness to that, which is not true for Pakistan.
Very much so, yeah.
Because and I'm not sort of a nationalist in any shape or form, but just to be fair, I suppose, and then same with India, and I'm sure same with Bangladesh, that, I think women and men have pretty much, to a large extent, equal opportunity. At least the people I know from Kashmir and Pakistan and places, they seem to have equal opportunities as far as I know. Actually, women are pushed more harder than boys in many cases. So I find that sometimes is problematic when she's kind of put up there as a poster girl for kind of women's right to education.
But I think that can't be helped given the circumstances of what's happened in her life and what she's actually... And don't forget, because of the war on terror in Afghanistan, for her to come out and saying this is what we need, and then she's done so well. And also, don't forget, I'm sure she won the Nobel Peace Prize as well.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, the youngest Nobel laureate. Right? So but all that's come off the back of...
Yeah, I understand that.
A position that the West has taken... I mean, I suppose it's akin to the West position towards Africa, whereas we always get told in Britain and in the Western world that Africa's starving, right? It's got no real economy, it's got no real assets, and we need to pour in money. But yet the figures will be very different, because Africa exports more in terms of value than it gets in terms of aid. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not trying to equate the two, but what I'm trying to say is that I think we get a particular distorted view of the world, where we tend to be, the people who jump to vanguards of, the people who jump to the help and rescue of people. Yet we don't present the full picture, that of what's happening there, I guess.
Yeah.
I know that's not the topic, but
I was just going to say we're going to try and cover this on a different show.
Yeah, but in saying that, all best of luck to Malala Yousafzai. Yeah. I think it's a great achievement.
Absolutely. So yeah, getting back onto tonight's show, we're going to be discussing war and conflict.
You forgot now.
Me, I'm prepared, brother. What the British have left behind, their legacy in terms of
the British Raj.
The British Raj. So with that in mind, then, I'll start off with, as India and Pakistan, this week have celebrated 70 years of independence. We're going to be discussing the lasting legacy of the partition of British India and the turmoil, trauma, which marred the birth of the two nations. Yeah. I mean, I see also BBC, you must have seen quite a few programs at the moment. They've got different celebrities, well-known Asian people in the media who are going back, tracing their their parents' footsteps or their grandparents' footsteps, trying to understand what actually happened 70 years ago. I'm going to be honest with you, brother. I've watched a lot of it, and nearly all of it I had a lump in my throat.
Right.
And on a human level, just seeing these people, a lot of these people have survived, so they're in their 80s or in their 90s, right? And they are...
But they were young at the time.
But they were very young at the time. They were children, okay? And to hear their stories is just horror.
Yeah.
Just absolute horror, and just to start, give our listeners a little bit of idea of what we're talking about. So we're talking about the partition, which happened in August 1947, when the British rule ended on the 15th of August 1947. Okay, and this was the biggest movement of people in history outside war and famine.
Yeah. Well, for Pakistan, it ended on 14th.
Correct. Yeah. They split the days they were going to celebrate it. But this is why I mentioned the British rule ended on the 15th of British India itself. So two newly independent states were created. One was called India. The other one was called Pakistan. And approximately 12 million people became refugees. And approximately 1 million people were killed in religious violence. Just the numbers are staggering, brother. And then the last element of this was tens of thousands of women were abducted, usually by men of different religions.
Yeah.
And then when the countries when it was split, we had West Pakistan, we had East Pakistan, and that East Pakistan became Bangladesh in 1971. Okay. And these are like the hard facts of what's happened there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to lie to you, but I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't know much about the partition until I started doing a lot of research into it. Why it happened, how it happened, who it affected, and then watching some of the accounts of these people on TV recently. Genuinely, I was taken aback of like, you know, how this happened. I mean, I understand, you know, some of the reasons why it happened. You know, why the Muslims felt like their identity was going to be lost. They were more and more living in a Hindustan atmosphere, where they felt that they as I said, their culture and everything was going to be affected. So they felt the only way around this would be to sit with the viceroy and try and thrash out a deal. Nobody expected the violence.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's necessarily true, actually.
No, what I meant was the guys sitting at the top table when they were going.
No, I don't even know if that's true either.
Oh well, I'm hoping for you to now counter this, obviously. But you know, okay, I suppose not on the scale of what happened. You know, when you listen to the stories about, you know, trains. I mean, you can come in here, brother. But I mean, the trains of people going from one direction to the other. Yeah. You know, there was almost as if informants were telling one side about the other side, and whole trains were just getting mauled. And
yeah, I think that's the sort of general picture, isn't it? That people were sort of these 10 to 12 million people who were being displaced. So India is split on religious lines, which is chaotic in the best of times. Yeah. Which you know, whereas Hindu and Sikhs went with what today is known as India, Republic of India, and Muslims went where the lines were drawn for the creation of Pakistan. Yeah, like I said, it happened on the 14th of August for Pakistan, 1947, and 15th of August for India, and again 1947. Now, I guess to understand this, I mean, the British rule in India was called the British Raj, and we were just talking about this earlier, that when we used to talk about the British Raj, I actually thought it was a made-up term, you know, as more of a mick-take, but it was an actual term that was actually used at the time to define British government's ruling of the subcontinent, which includes present-day India proper, Bangladesh and Pakistan, and a few other kind of Myanmar and other places, I think. So anyway, so you have these like millions of people being forced through almost what would be ethnically cleansing process. So where you have Hindus on the which would become India, chasing and targeting Muslims. So Muslims are fleeing in one direction, and on the other side, what would become Pakistan, you have Muslims who are chasing and targeting Hindus and to an extent Sikhs, and they are fleeing in the other direction. So you have this kind of 10 or 12 million refugee crisis moving, you know, and they're on this on the trains and stuff, which you know, we hear that, you know, a entire train gets massacred. I mean, it's horrific to see. It's all
tough to imagine.
It's tough to imagine. So 1 million people die. I mean, this is a Holocaust, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is the Holocaust of you know, magnitude scale. 1 million people are dying in the process of dividing a country based on religious lines. Yeah. So, you know, it's a very chaotic process. I mean, British government, they have a responsibility that they are the government in charge. They are responsible for the state of, you know, the defense of these people. They have had taxes from these people. They have governed and ruled the country out of what essentially was a trading outpost, you know, East India Company. It was just a company that came, and then in the process, it took over the entire region, right? Yeah. And what then? I mean, you can just have a look at the you know, the way they viewed Indians. I mean, we have you know, Winston Churchill, you know, his famous comments about the way he looked at Indians, you know, and the starvation that suffered during a famine when all the wheat was, I believe it was corn or something, was being imported into Britain, and he said we are more, something along the lines, we are more deserving of it than them. You know, we will contempt, yeah. And that's how I believe that's how the British establishment viewed people of the subcontinent. And so, in that sense, I don't think the necessary precautions were taken in that region. I mean, I'm not a historian, and I don't know about the history of the partition that well. But you're going to divide a country into two. You're going to divide it along religious lines, and they from time to time there have been religious, and more closer to that time there were, flaring up of violence. But these people have lived together for centuries. Yeah?
Yes, they did.
Muslims, Indians, problems. Hindus, Sikhs. They, apart from the normal kind of societal issues that you have, where any country where people living together, but by and large they live together in peace and harmony, right? But yet here, as somebody said, that this partition made men into predators. I mean, the process was so chaotic. There were no safeguards in place. There was no the process by which people will be moved between different places if ever they need to were never in place. People's minds were never developed. It was just one day decided, let's do this.
And almost
I mean, I know this came over time, over several decades, but the point is that it was left in a chaotic state, and this was the outcome. And that's the legacy that Britain we have to contend with. And that is a legacy, I think, unfortunately, that we've left behind.
I totally agree with you. I think the other element here as well is that the British forces that were left in the country at the time were ordered,
the Indian Army,
they were ordered not to get involved in any of the sectarian violence, do nothing to stop anything. You hear accounts of people who had been affected by this, and they were saying that while their family members being butchered outside, or while their sister or mother or daughter's been taken away, there are soldiers present who did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And one of the accounts of
this actually is not unique, because we see the same thing in Bosnia, where we have Sarajevo under siege by the Serbian forces, and we have the United Nations protectorate, people who are set there to protect the people, who do nothing while a massacre gets taken place. So it's not nothing, and this has happened in time and time again. Wherever we have been as a country, as Britain or as part of the Allied forces, we have left chaos behind. And
without a shadow of a doubt. And just to add to that, brother, is the element where they didn't get involved. They were ordered not to get involved. The only times they were allowed to use arms were to defend themselves.
Yes.
That was it. There was no other time. What do you think, listeners? We would love to hear from you. This is such an important subject. We know a lot of our listeners, members of the local community, I'm sure in Luton as well, will have some sort of affinity to this topic, whether it's ancestral or whether they have an opinion or anything like that. Please get involved. You can call the studio on 01733 602 133, or you can text WhatsApp us on 07745 278 978. What you just mentioned there, brother, about leaving chaos and anarchy, Libya.
Yeah,
Libya
absolutely.
Now is quite literally a lawless,
a failed state.
Failed state. There's nothing there anymore.
And Libya was a jewel in Africa. It was one of the richest nations in that part of the world.
Correct. And from a lot of the research that I've done on a personal level, Gaddafi, for all his faults, did also provide for a lot of his neighboring nations.
Yeah. Well, he had what he's called a kind of almost like a public bank, didn't he? Where the revenue from oil and gas and whatever else they sold was then put into this kind of a public bank, and from that the public services were funded. So absolutely, I think he had faults, no doubt, but then again, Tony Blair went and hugged him and brought him in from the cold. So
I recall that video.
I mean, after that, from what I understand, he was okay. He was one of our guys, and then suddenly one day, France decide, there is a decision taken at some point that he's no more our friend. And now is a sort of neoconservative kind of position that now is the time to take care of our old friends and foe.
And if I recall rightly, Obama decided not to step into this, didn't he? He actually warned the rest from getting involved.
I mean, Obama's administration was largely about a hands-off approach. I think he didn't get into Syria when he should have done. In Libya, he obviously didn't get in. I mean, he was never somebody who wanted to directly engage. But then again, more drone attacks were done under his government. First ever American citizen was assassinated under his leadership than any other. So I don't think Obama was a pacifist in any way, shape, or form. But
definitely not. And I think with Obama,
and I don't think he had hindsight. I think he just didn't feel that he wanted to get entrenched in another conflict.
I agree with you. And I think the other thing as well is by getting involved in Syria, by getting involved in Libya, and anything like that, there's that. You've publicly gone on record now. I mean, obviously, you've got the famous red lines crossed and he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But you've gone on record to say you were going to do something, then you do it. Like, he didn't want to be remembered like Bush or someone like that. But however, you are right. He used technology the most.
Yeah. I mean, he is remembered in a sense that he didn't get involved. He refused almost to get involved into Syria, even when the red lines were crossed. And then, which opened up the space for Russia to come in and dictate the terms of that engagement. And so once you leave the space open for somebody like Russia to come in and dictate the terms of engagement, then we're sort of left scrambling to see where we can fill the void. That's what's happened, and Obama's remembered for that.
That's true. I agree with you, and the world is certainly not a better place for it.
No. I mean, we're talking about partition. We're talking about how at the turn of 1900s onwards, we've had crisis after crisis. I mean, I'm sure it was there before, but we've had mass weapons of mass destruction deployed against civilian people. A million people died in this process. I mean, I was just listening to Mr. Krishna's story, who was born in Shekhupur, which is in present-day Pakistan, and northern Pakistan, and he's living in India. He was forced to flee, lock up shop, and lock up his house with a view of coming back. And it almost reminded me of the Palestinians, where the Palestinians locked up their houses and their shops and took a few things with them with the deeds and said, "Oh, we'll come back." Once Britain, the mandate is, restored, and once the British government takes stock of the situations where these Zionist terrorists are going around killing people, it's complete civil unrest. So they left thinking that they'll come back, and this is what happened with Mr. Krishna. He left with the view of coming back. 70 years on, he's about 80, 90 years old now, and he's been wanting to go back. To see, just to see his birthplace and where he was born, walk the streets, and if they're still there, and if he can meet some old friends of his. He's 90 odd years old, and he's been trying for years to get a visa to go, and now and he's obviously got visa. He goes there, he gets welcomed, and he talks in his own words how he was welcomed with love and open arms, and people. He goes, at the end, the people, whether they're Indian or Pakistani, people are people, and what binds them together is culture, language, all those things. It just binds these people together. So really, in reality, at the people, human level, these people live together for centuries. But it's the governments that have created a climate of fear, and which was fueled by partition, which was fueled at the time when the British left. Kashmir was a prime example of a place that was left in conflict. We shouldn't have been. It should have been settled. It was left in conflict. And the primary reason for that, and I know we're probably running out of time, but the primary reason for that, I think, this is not because I've done some research around this, but this is what I believe, just looking at what the British did around the world, is that, it's great when two countries are locked in arms and conflict, that you can sell them weapons.
Absolutely.
You sell them weapons. You don't.
Some might say you're being cynical, but that's a fact.
I'm not being cynical, but the countries are forced to spend a greater and greater chunk of their GDP on acquiring weapons from the West, on defense, and less of that on education, on employment, on jobs prosperity, on economic prosperity for the people, and making lives better for people in their countries. And when that happens, and countries are constantly locked into this conflict, now both of them are nuclear.
And I was just going to touch on that, actually. In the 70 years since India and Pakistan gained independence, they fought 3 wars.
Yeah.
The last one in 1999. And there's still a simmering tension between India and Pakistan, and over geopolitical fault lines. And like you just said, it's ended up after partition, these two countries, these people used to get along with each other.
Yeah.
They developed their own nuclear weapons, and so now there's an uneasy standoff, isn't there? And it's fraught with wider danger of what potentially may happen over Kashmir.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
it's a sad situation. A lot of people say it should never have happened. It should have been managed differently. They could have coexisted in India. Gandhi did try to do that. I've got 30 seconds. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying that I sometimes do feel that I don't think partition was the best way, but I wasn't living at that time, so I don't know what the status, what the environment was like.
That's right.
But, there were certain elites which wanted to govern and have power, and I think a lot of this stuff was done to feed their ego and their, way forward. I don't know. I mean, I could be mistaken.
What do you think, brothers and sisters? Strong statement there from Brother Hamid at the end there. Please get involved after Maghrib is on. You can call us on 01733 602 133. Please stay tuned. We have a different topic after the Azan. Jazakallah khair for listening.
You're listening to Salaam Radio, and it's now time for Maghrib Azan.
This Azan is sponsored by Acorn Academy Day Nursery, where baby acorns grow into mighty oaks. To register your child or arrange a visit, please call Catherine on 01733 890 911.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم بك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك المصير رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
You're listening to Peterborough's Community Radio, Salaam Radio. You're listening to Peterborough's Community Radio, Salaam Radio. Salaam Radio. 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Let's Talk, our weekly current affairs show on Salaam Radio 106.2 FM and also live for Inspire FM in Luton. I'm joined with my co-host, Brother Hamid.
Assalamu alaikum.
We had a great first half of the show, I think.
Alhamdulillah.
Very, really important subject. I felt...
Never enough time.
But we move over to the second half of the show now. And tonight we're going to be talking about The Sun. It recently published an article in which the author of the article, Mr. Trevor Kavanagh, used the term the Muslim problem in capitals.
Yep. Actually, he said, what will we do about the Muslim problem? Correct.
And I don't know if any of our listeners have actually read this article. If you have, we would love to hear from you. You can call the studio on 01733 602 133 or text or WhatsApp us on 07745 278 978. I mean, you can call and text us even if it's about the previous subject or anything else you want to talk to us about. We're more than happy to listen to your views, etc. So yeah. This article, brother, extremely shocking. And to that end, The Sun now actually faces an investigation over its Muslim problem after the article, after the Jewish and Islamic groups liken it to Nazi propaganda.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, I'll be honest with you, brother. I was completely shocked when I saw the writing.
Yeah.
Because it harks back to the use of the phrase "the Jewish problem," to which the Nazis responded with "the final solution."
Yeah. I mean. This article was hate and bigotry in its most highest form. When you sort of start saying using, like I said, the Nazi-like language, the Muslim problem, and which equates to, and I believe this is, the 107 MPs who wrote an article, who wrote an open letter against or for Sun to investigate this. They said that there was the way the Muslim problem was written with capital letters, was and the emphasis applied to it was a definite attempt at trying to relate it to the Jewish question, which was the debate that was waging at the 19th 20th century in Europe, which dealt with the civil, legal, and national and political status of Jews. So, for example, there was a debate that was going on at the time, which included legal and economic nature of Jews living in Europe, and there was a thing called the Jewish disabilities that dealt with, in a legal term, restrictions that were applied to Jews. One of them being that they were only allowed to wear specific and identifiable form of clothing. I mean, it's shocking. And then that ended. So that debate raged for a while, which then ultimately ended with the Nazis coming to power, and then having ultimately the final solution, which ended up in the Holocaust. So we on this show previously we've talked about the alarming rise of hate towards Muslims, the media fueled hate that is causing a problem in our society, in our country, for Muslims who are like everyday Joe, peaceful, loving, hard-working families. And it's creating an atmosphere of hate, which then ends up with, potentially can end up with the Holocaust if it's not stopped. We could have somebody like Hitler coming to government, coming to power, and using his influence and position of authority to enact laws, which then potentially lead to the Holocaust, and that's a scary thing.
Definitely, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I think. Like you just
and it's terms like this, the Muslim problem, is people like Trevor Kavanagh, is people like him who has previously been investigated for his for using for making up some figures around the age of refugees or something along those lines, who sits on the IPSO. He sits on the committee that's supposed to regulate the press.
He was nominated for that position in 2015, and there was an uproar at that time as well.
Yeah.
And just want to get back to go back a little bit to the terms currently being bandied about in the media. So, previously, I'm sure our listeners are aware, there was Kevin Meyer's tropes about Jews, namely Vanessa Phelps and Claudia Winkleman being greedy for money in the Irish Sunday Times. There was then we had Katie Hopkins for Mail Online when she described refugees as cockroaches, and then she tweeted about the final solutions. That was after the Manchester bombing. And then the Daily Mail cartoon that showed people coming in as refugees with rats, sickeningly reminiscent of Nazi propaganda film stuff. Just look up the Eternal Jew for that one. And the daily subtle use of language and stereotypes that insidiously link Islam with evil and aggression. Now, the thing is, too many headlines equate refugees, migrants, Muslims, and terrorists in one sentence.
Yeah. So it's not even subtle anymore. It's blatant.
So they become synonymous in people's minds.
Yeah.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
This is a major problem. So just as the Nazis did to the Jews, the suggestion, that Muslim men are preying on white children, just as the Nazis exploited the blood libel and the notion that Jews were abducting German children, and also the same notions that migrants are carrying and spreading diseases and swindling their way through life. What is going on?
Yeah. I mean, Europe has a race, has a hate problem. I think this is the reality.
Huge.
We have seen, the Jews, which ultimately led to the Holocaust, hate for the other. We are seeing Muslims, and the only good Muslims, one who's not really Muslim. I mean, we had what's his name? Moe? I've forgotten his name now. Whatever his surname was. We have him talking about Islam, less Islam in Europe is better.
Oh, yes. It'll come to me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the problem is that there are people who are openly talking about Muslims in a demonized, in a derogatory sense, which was, I mean, if you look at the contours of what happened to Jews in Europe up until the Holocaust, if you look at the contours, you could, and you take what's been happening with the Muslims over the last 15 to 20 years, and the way the media has been talking about Muslims, I don't think it's too far away from that map.
100% draw parallels to it now, without shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, personally,
Trevor has drawn parallels to it.
He has.
He says that the sun shouldn't be
in his warped version of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. For me, though, on a personal level, I don't think there is a Muslim problem. But I do feel that journalists and politicians are trying to convince people that there is such a thing. And you don't have to look far in so many different political parties now of the rhetoric used when, for example, when Sadiq Khan became mayor. The things, obviously there's been atrocities in the UK that, we're not going to shirk away from that, but that said, the whole demonizing of the Muslim population in the UK has led to this, where a prominent ex-editor of a newspaper now writing that article has felt it completely appropriate to use that term, and he probably felt nothing was going to happen. I mean, for example, just to go on, about this. I mean, look at the harmless cake maker Nadia Hussein, who gets told to her face on a train by some stranger that I ain't sitting there a Muslim. I didn't that, then goes on to say, I expect to be shoved or pushed or verbally abused. She says, because it's happened to her. I mean, that's the real Muslim problem.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah.
And I don't think Muslims have created that.
No. I think women are, and it was Douglas Murray, by the way, earlier on about the less Islam. But yeah, we live in a society where women are being, in all warps or in all aspects of society, women are being downtrodden. Even when there are calls to try and liberate women, it's an attempt to undermine women. Yeah. And we've seen this in the attacks against Muslim women. Where there, on one hand, people, these Islamophobes, will talk about liberating women, and on the other hand, they'll demand that they can't wear whatever they want to wear.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's seen those videos of, Muslim women in supermarkets being shouted at.
That's why, yeah.
Tails are all being, attacked verbally, physically in the streets.
I mean, there's a problem with xenophobia in Europe, and the problem with xenophobia in Europe is deeply rooted. We had the Nazi Germany. We've had issues with. We had Bosnia, the crisis where the Kosovans, the Serbians felt that they were better than the Bosnians. We've had the Serbians again against the Kosovans. We've had this issue in Europe, a xenophobic issue in Europe against the other, and this is a problem that we have to face. I mean, we can't keep pushing it to the edges of our society. I mean, this is deeply rooted, is institutionalized, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse because papers like The Sun can come out and talk about the Muslim problem, equating it to the Jewish question. It's a scary time.
Definitely.
It's a scary time. And not to mention that, sorry to cut you off, but to say that, to bring it in at the time when the article's talking about the grooming gangs, or the gangs that in Newcastle, the ones that were coming, and to call them Muslim gangs. I mean, I don't know what this guy Trevor Kavanagh is thinking. I mean, 90% of child abusers are white people. Now, would it be right for us to say all white people are responsible for that? No, because this is a small, deprived, small criminal element of the society, and much the same where it comes to people who claim to be Muslims. They are a very small, tiny spot, a dark spot within the Muslim community, and much the same about this 90% of child abusers are white people. I mean, it's a very tiny spot, but to kind of then generalize that, as Trevor has done, it's foolhardy. It's ridiculous.
It is, absolutely. And to that end, over 150 complaints, were sent through to Ipso,
who Trevor Kavanagh sits on the board of.
Who have said that mostly under Clause 12, which is discrimination of the Editor's Code of Practice. Okay.
Should he be sacked?
On a personal level, first of all, he should not be on the board.
He should not be on the board, but he should be sacked from the board.
I think he should. Yes, I agree.
He should be sacked. I think the listeners, you should be writing in and telling Ipso to sack him for not only one, but string of issues that he's had and he's been investigated over.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to that, I mean, on social networks, the article was branded as disgusting. A spokesman for the Board of Deputies said that they were horrified to read this in The Sun, and they felt that it warrants swift condemnation from Ipso and a prompt retraction and apology by The Sun. And they went further to say they won't tolerate indiscriminate attacks by the media on any faith, which is, what I have to say, is very heartwarming to see. That the
Ipso should first sack this guy, Trevor Kavanagh. Just sack him from the board.
It's heartwarming to see,
and then he should be sacked from The Sun.
Yeah, Brother Hamid is on it.
Sorry,
I see what you're saying. I get it. I think
people have got sacked for far less.
And this article does peddle hate.
It does. It does, without doubt.
It seeds this. It sows the seeds of division. And he should be held accountable. I agree with you, but if you flip this slightly, it's heartwarming to see that the Jewish and Islamic groups have actually come together. They've realised, the Jews have also realised, hold on a second.
They know from their history, that from a European history and from their history more personally, they know that you allowed this kind of hate to flourish. And it's only going to end up with a disaster in our society.
The other element we've got here as well is, and a lot of people who will look at this article online will see, if you just look at the comment sections, you'll find that the far right, the alt-right, have decided to attack the Islamic and Jewish groups who've actually gone to Ipso to say, well, you know what they're doing? They're trying to compare an apple with an apple here. And it just isn't the same. For example, they were saying, an anti-rape article, this person should be sacked and blah, blah, and all this sort of stuff. And it just beggars belief that people are actually out there who've decided to separate themselves from the actual reality of what's happening and just follow the only narrative which they have. Yeah. And that takes me nicely towards, Charlottesville, brother.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, alt-right, they would do that because they hate the other. That's the white supremacists. They hate anyone other than who conforms with their views. They are a terrorist cancer in our midst, in our society, which needs to be just plugged out. I mean, when you
first of all, brother, we need to call it what it is first.
Call it what it is. I mean, I believe it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who said that if you have cancer, then you do everything in your midst to get rid of that cancer, to get, to zap yourself, whatever you do, and whatever pain that you may have to go through temporarily, you try to get rid of it. Unfortunately, that's what we need to do with the far right, the alt right, the white supremacists, all these hate peddling groups, that we need to call them terrorist groups, and we need to expunge them from our society, because there's no room for that level of hate and terror in our society, in our democratic society.
Certainly in the Western world, I agree with you. I would also
anywhere in the world, anywhere. It doesn't matter Western world, anywhere in the world.
I agree with you, but yourself and I. I mean, for example, you just have to look at. If we're looking at ethnic cleansing here, people deciding to think, well, we're better than one's better than the other.
Yeah.
The element, I suppose, where I'm going with this is the reaction to everything that's been going around us. And, I can't help but feel, in the last 35, 40 years, the world has become certainly a more inward-looking place. Moreover, certainly with the election of not just Trump, but obviously Trump is in 2016, 2017. He's the main guy now. Everyone's looking towards. But I think it's been building, like you mentioned, about so many attacks to different races, different countries being involved in different things, and trying to wipe out the other just for believing one for some reason it should be on a mantle higher than the other, and the rest of it. But what really shocks me, brother, is the reaction by some of our political leaders to some of these atrocities, some of these attacks, some of these awful things we've witnessed just this year alone. And very recently we've had the alt-right, as they've been branded. So we've got the alt-right, the far right, the nationalists, the American nationalists, the British nationalists. Why have we lost the term Nazi, brother? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. They are effectively promoting the same ideology.
It's exactly
as
the
Nazis,
same ideology. And I tell you, watching some of the videos, seeing some of the live footage I saw on Periscope, on Twitter, of what was actually happening that day in Charlottesville. They were screaming blood and soil.
Yeah, that's what, blood and soil. Yeah,
right?
That's why, yeah.
And they had all these young people who had surrounded the statue of General E. Lee, the guy who purportedly had killed so many people, and was one of them, the main defenders of slavery, the chap who you could say really flew the Confederate flag really, really high. They're there protesting peacefully. Suddenly, a pre-planned, march from the far right appears slowly. But you know what happens, brother? They're all holding these torches. They're all in in a line, three abreast, walking towards the statue. They then gather around this whole. There's hundreds of them, brother. Yeah, and they then. It does start off with vocals. There were a lot of intimidating each other, but then it got physical. It got really physical. Yeah. There was a lot of fighting. A lot of people got hurt, and then the next day they got up again really early, 5:30 in the morning. They marched back on towards the town again. You had the other side, which now the media and certainly parts of the political establishment are calling the alt left, have come to defend their position. There's a humongous fight. People are trying to defend what they believe in. I have no problem with people doing that. But it's the level which these got to. And it culminates with a 20-year-old guy who gets into his car, then drives at speed at these demonstrators and kills one person. Then reverses and carries on. There's actual images online of people, bodies are in the air, brother, right? And what happens, bro? I'll tell you what happens. The President of the United States doesn't say anything. Doesn't say anything whatsoever. This is homegrown terrorism. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And it's taken 2 days. And even when the 2 days came out, he blamed both sides.
Both sides, yeah, that's why, yeah.
And then the following day, he used the teleprompter and he stood there and he read a speech, which you could tell he was awkward, only to then go and contradict it himself. Few hours later, via his often gift giving Twitter feed, and he just stood by his position. And this is the other really I'm not going to lie to you, brother, we've then had the Barcelona incident, and it's taken him 35 I think it was 35 minutes or something where he started tweeting about it. And then what I'm trying to get at here is, what's the difference?
No, you're right. I mean when that things have gone wrong with your presidency when the former head of the KKK, David Duke, David Duke, praises you for honesty and courage. I mean, you've really messed up at that point.
Yeah.
And this is what's happened, and this is what Trump's presidency is basically is. It's about giving the race hate elements of society where people talked about it in their small little circles, but beyond that it wasn't anything. To now force or to unite the right was the movement that started in Charlottesville, is to get people together and to effectively bring this hate filled people out on the streets to then attack other people. And everyone can see that except the president of the United States, which is interesting. And a country that has given blood, I mean, people who fought against the Nazis in Germany, there's no place for Nazi flag to be flying on that land. It's like a Nazi flag flying in Britain.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be deeply offensive to the lives of those people who lost their lives. Lest we forget. I mean, after the war, we had this idea that lest we forget, we will always remember the moment when the world changed.
Yeah.
When we said no to hate.
The sacrifice.
And there's no place for hate in our society. So for the last 60 or so years, we have been progressive.
Yeah.
We have got a whole set of national laws which protect people's rights and freedoms and liberties, and now we are in the danger of going back to the animal instincts of protectionism, in this case white supremacy, in the idea that we are better than the other, to xenophobia, and using might is right as a weapon to do that. It's a scary time. I mean,
very scary, shocking, deplorable, I think, response. So, I mean, I'll tell you something, and I quote this. I mean, this was Trump's reaction on the Saturday, and I quote, "I wanted to make sure, unlike most politicians, that what I said was correct. Not make a quick statement. The statement I made on Saturday, the first statement, was a fine statement. But you don't make statements that direct unless you know the facts." And then on Tuesday, he said, "It takes a little while to get to the facts. I still don't know the facts. It's a very, very important process to me. It's a very important statement, so I don't want to go quickly and just make a statement for the sake of making a political statement. I want to know the facts." Okay, fine, right? And this is all with Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he, very quickly tweeted about, Barcelona, when he came out. Obviously, he did the usual, which is, we stand with you, be tough, we love you, etc., etc. And then 45 minutes after this tweet, he put, "Study what General Pershing of the United States did to terrorists when caught.
Yeah.
There was no more radical Islamic terror for 35. What is this guy on?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
look, here's the problem.
He talks about that the facts have never been an issue for him before.
No,
except when the far alt-right is concerned.
Exactly. This is what I was going to go with. So people like David Duke, go on Twitter, they go on news networks and say, "Well, we're only carrying out what the message from the president
That's right.
is."
Yeah, that's right.
And this is dangerous.
Yeah.
And this also goes along with what we're talking about this evening. You've got the Sun in this country talking about the Muslim problem.
Yeah.
You've got the leader of the free world who's not condemning homegrown terrorism. I mean, he's yet to condemn the attack on the mosque in America.
Yeah.
It still hasn't happened.
Yeah. I mean, the issue is that even in the UK, we know, and this was on the MEND website, that 40 people belonging to a neo-Nazi movement are being investigated for preparing acts of terror against which target Muslim people. So it's not just over the pond. Not just in the US. It's here in Britain. I mean, it's everywhere in the Western world. We are seeing the rise of far right, alt-right, white supremacists, and hate. There's an interesting thing that I want to kind of before we finish. Angry White Men. So Michael Kimmel wrote a book called The Angry White Man, and he says that he defines the mentality or the thought pattern. He says that since so this is what these people believe, or they think. Since I've lost my sense of entitlement in the workplace, I will become a mini tyrant at home. I will become king of the castle. This effectively gives me something to be proud of, something that demands respect. And now he writes this, Michael Kimmel, in his book, The Angry White Man. And Julia Plattman, who goes and interviews one of these nationalist group, NSM. So she interviews this guy called Jeff Hall, who then who brings her into the house. She goes, it's a normal house, a loving house, except that there's a Nazi flag hung up, a massive one. They're doing all the Nazi salutes and all that. One day, his son comes down, Joseph, takes a gun when everyone's asleep and shoots him in the head. And anyway, it's an interesting story, but the point is that hate breeds hate.
Absolutely.
And that's what's happening there. That there's hate within these groups, and this hate is not only within the groups, it's spilling out into the wider society. That's right. And that's what we need to fight against. I
agree with you, and I think not just all communities across the world, they need to call hate and for what it is, and stand up against it. That just wraps up our show. Thanks everybody for listening. Before I go, we have a Salaam Radio event. It's our 1 year anniversary, actually, on Sunday the 20th of August, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's at Millfield Recreation Park, which is Papa Echo 1 2 Alpha Uniform. This is opposite Occupation Road. We're going to have funfair rides, chocolate fountains, face painting, all that sort of fun stuff. I'll be there, Brother Hamid will be there, the whole Salaam Radio team will be there. We'll be live as well. We hope to join you then. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for listening. Jazakallah khair.